Oh, so happy to be here. And I missed everybody last week since I was out. What was that? The week, I guess, of the 12th, I was out with vertigo and had to take some time off because it actually just kind of put me totally horizontal. I spent about 5, 6 days with vertigo, just my head spinning, everything crazy, topsy-turvy. But the cool thing about all of this is, and let me just make a quick announcement as everybody's coming in. So this is episode 222, and today is November the 19th. Hello, everybody. Oh, look at all these lovely people joining. It's how fun to have you all here. Um, but I was sharing that last week I couldn't have. Hello, Natalia. So good to see you. I had vertigo for about a week, and it was a funny thing to experience, like Richard was just asking me, because I said to him, I got to just practice being still. I had to be still, otherwise my head was going crazy. I'd be spinning. I couldn't lift my head off the bed because I had to be horizontal pretty much the whole time. And but it was a wonderful time to practice more groundedness, more stillness, just connecting to source because there's nothing else to do. And Richard, you were so cute. You said, well, didn't you say you wanted to do that anyways? Yes. And here's the beautiful thing is that when we are consciously aware that we want to ground ourselves, we want to center ourselves in the truth of who we are, well, you're in control of having that experience at any moment. You can do it any time. However, when life wants you to understand that there is more that you could do in that realm, it's going to activate something in your experience is going to get activated to help you see where you are not grounded and centered. Now, it is my experience that the deeper that we're moving on this path, the more the stuff comes up to be looked at. So if you've got big things going on, if you've got big changes going on, if you've got things that are topsy-turvy going on, well, it's because there are big things ahead for you. And it's not that these things are happening to you somehow to hurt you or because you're not doing your part right. They're happening for you. Everything is happening for us. When we move out of this victim mentality, when we stop listening to the ego and start aligning with the Holy Spirit within, the teachings of the Course in Miracles are very, very clear. We have two voices inside of us. There are only two directions that we can go. And even that is not fully accurate, but we're going to go with it because to really understand what the Course teaches, you have to recognize that we're looking at things on two levels. One is the level that God is all there is, God is everything. And the second level is that I'm here creating experiences separate from God. That this is what the ego is all about. And the reason that there really are not two directions is because creation is expanding, period. So it's only moving in one direction, and that is out. It's expanding. That's why it's infinite. It's just moving out. However, what feels like a resistance to creation is a decision that, no, I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to do it God's way. And instead of flowing out, we ground ourselves, we anchor ourselves into a reality based on what it is that we think we prefer. And let me tell you, when you begin to move down this path, you realize that what we've been preferring is many, many times not really what we want. However, we are preferring it at a level that is giving us the opportunity to see the resistance, because the resistance is what tells you how far away from the expansion are you. I use this chart as the example. What we are is constantly expanding. And from a decision beyond this physical body, before we incarnate, we decide you know what, I want to come in and have an experience. So what is expanding decides I'm going to jump in backwards and contract. I'm going to come in and have an experience in density. Now, one of the reasons humanity has such a hard time waking up, it's very, very difficult waking up, is because we are so darn stubborn. And the reason we are stubborn is because we want to be right. And this is where we don't realize that we create our own suffering. We create our own everything that creates a classroom for us, we create it because we are stubborn. If we allowed ourselves to flow, if we were like little kids and we went with the flow, oh, mommy wants, is going to go to the grocery store, going to get in the car, go. Dad's going to do this. We're in school and we're doing that. And the kids just kind of flow. Well, we are beings that flow. And the reason we flow with whatever is, we are okay moving and doing things because we are freedom seeking beings. And anything that allows us to move and expand, it feels like freedom, feels like joy, feels like fun. When we are little, we are trained out of flowing because we are trained into compliance. We are told, okay, you got to stop doing what you're doing here and you got to follow the rules. You got to get in line. It's, lunchtime, it's snack time, it's math time, it's English time, it's art time. So it appears that we're flowing, or we're flowing from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. But what happens is we're not doing it because it's coming from within us. We have learned to flow with the system, which is to go against our innate natural way of flowing, which means you listen to your own inner voice. You get up when you want to wake up. You do things when you want to do them. Now, if your ego is going, but what about keeping appointments and calendars? We have people to meet and we have things to do. That is how we resist our liberation, because the ego is always going to argue for its own limitations. It is always going to say, but I have to do it this way. But, if we don't participate with the calendar and do things a certain way, then we would have chaos. For a little while, we would have chaos because we have been trained out of our telepathic abilities. We can't communicate and connect with each other from a telepathic way because we are not in touch with the fact that we're all non-physical vibrational beings. At the core of our essence, the truth of who we are is an emanation of frequency. That's what we are. That's why we have to get really clear that the window for ascension is coming. Let me be very clear. We can always ascend. There is no closing of that window. The window that is closing is the acceleration process for ascension. What that means is that the beings that have been descending into human incarnation for thousands upon thousands of years have been going down in frequency, have been making ourselves, because I've been part of that group, believe that we're human and this is what reality is. And we're over here. And then there's the big expanse of the universe out there. But this is all that we are. That has shrunk our mind and caused us to stop flowing with creation because we have anchored ourselves into this is reality. And we are serious. This is it. Again, our ego argues for our limitations. The minute you say this is it, you're in trouble. So what is happening is that we are in the process of, if you look at that spiral, we are in the process of making a shift, meaning, and this has never happened before from everything that I'm listening to, this has never happened before because humanity has not been ready for an acceleration in ascension. We have been going around, taking cycles that take 26,000 years to revolve, and we keep going around in circles and we keep incarnating, we keep playing with karma, and we keep experiencing what the ego wants to do. All perfectly okay. because the creative source says, okay, that's a playground. You can do that if you want to. And so we have been descending. We have been lowering our frequency, lowering our knowledge, our awareness. We have been, in many, many ways, dumbed down. And that's okay. But what is happening is that while we are in physical form, many of us want to wake up. Many of us don't want to continue to follow what everybody else tells us to do. We want to start flowing in ascension, not flowing down into suppression. So to break that, we have to make the decision to stop believing what we thought was true before. We have to get curious. There's got to be another way. The Course is really clear. Nobody is going to really take what the Course says and be able to fully understand it unless they have decided to become open-minded. You have to be curious. You have to come to a place, and this requires maturity. And frankly, most humans, even spiritual people, are not very mature in the ways of what is happening here in the bigger game. And the reason it takes maturity is because only somebody who's mature is willing to recognize, I don't know it all. I don't know it all. One of the most beautiful, liberating things we can ever say. Not only is it honest, it is vulnerable, but it is authentic. We're realizing if I am a point in all of creation, I cannot know more than what this point knows. I can only know what I have accumulated. I can only know the sum total of everything that I have learned. And here comes the kicker. What if everything you have learned is not true? It is accurate, true with a capital T for the ego game, true to bind us into the cycles, the 26,000-year cycles of repeating the same thing, expecting different results. What if it's true for that? Then you're on track. But if you begin to go, I keep doing the same thing, and I keep getting the same, looking for a different result, but I keep getting the same result, and you begin to go, and there has to be that pause. There has to be that curiosity that says, what else is out there? What else am I missing? That sends us on a journey of questioning. And what we begin to understand, and this is why people love the spiritual journey, because it moves us into the realms of metaphysics, of that which is beyond the physical. And we begin to realize that our whole lives, we have been operating like being human is all there is the most important thing. And anything beyond that is maybe there's a few little good saints and angels over here, but then everything else is bad. Those bad ETs, those extraterrestrials, those aliens, all this bad stuff. But when you begin to open up your mind, you begin to realize that there's nothing that is bad. Everything is expanding because God created us that way, or holding on for dear life at some level of consciousness. And humanity has been holding on for dear lives at the third dimensional level. Now, many, I don't know what the number is, but I'm going to say upwards of 50% don't want to keep doing the same thing. This is why we see so much unrest in the world. Humanity is fed up with the same old ways. This is why I had tears of joy when I was watching what is happening in Mexico. And the young people, Generation X in Mexico, is standing up to the president, standing up to the cartels and saying, we don't want this anymore. We don't want to live with the normal that you have told us we are supposed to accept, that every single day, 60 people get killed, 40 people get kidnapped, that 40 people disappear every single day, that we're supposed to deal as normal, 100 people every single day. You do the math, that's a lot, that's thousands upon thousands, just in a matter of days. And the reason they don't want that is because something inside of them that is waking up is saying, we don't want to hold on to this old stuff anymore. We don't want to hold on to the lies and the deceptions of the ego, because to play the egoic game, You must believe in separation. You must believe in right and wrong. You must believe in good and bad and haves and have-nots. You must participate in the duality that pits us against one another. And when something begins to awaken and you go, there's got to be another way, the way is always to seek for the peace that you know is possible, for the joy that you know it's possible, for the collaboration and the co-creation that we know it's possible. Not only did most of us experience that as children, when we are allowed to flow and to move about with life in a very gentle way, we know that that is possible because it is a frequency that exists within each and every one of us. It's a very high frequency. When we feel off, and I'm not talking about just because you have a head cold, but when you feel off, you know that there is something that feels better, and then there's something that feels not as good. What feels not as good is a signal within this physical vessel where we are being reminded, don't go do that. You don't feel like going to school. Well, don't go do that. You don't feel like going to work. You don't feel like doing this thing. You don't feel like going on that date with that same person you've been seeing. Something is off. Instead of listening to that voice and questioning, because you got to get curious, you can't know it all because you're operating with that, well, this is my responsibility and this is what I have to do. And you begin to question, why do I feel off? What is happening? What is my true north? What is the place where I feel the most joyful? Well, it's always going to be a very peaceful, centered, grounded space. Anything that you're off, anything that moves you this way or that way is an opportunity for you to see, oh, I'm feeling like I have to do something. Well, why do you have to do that? Oh, because I made an agreement. It's a responsibility. And again, our egos go berserk. Well, they actually do one of two things. They either go berserk. What do you mean we're not going to have agreements? It's not what I'm saying. We're going to go through a period where everything has to get shaken up so that we can choose again. But we can't keep choosing inside of the same awareness that has us giving us what we don't want. So there's a lot of understanding that has to happen. Last week we were looking at the journey back in chapter 8 in A Course in Miracles. And we were in section number 1. In my book, it's page 138. This is the direction of the curriculum. What is so important about understanding the journey home is that the Course in Miracles is a manual that will help train our mind so we can think our way out of where we're at. So we can think our way up in frequency. So we can begin to work our way out from where we have dug ourselves into this hole that we have settled for so little. We have settled for doing things we don't like. We have settled for listening to people that we don't respect, listening to people that we know have no morals, have no inner compass. They don't really have a relationship with God. They think that they're better or they think that they're lesser. We have something internally activated, like the young people in Mexico. They know, I don't care if you're the president. What you're allowing, the killing of innocent people on a regular basis, the drug cartels running things and deciding who gets to live and who doesn't, that's not okay. There's an innate moral compass that is guiding us towards that which is for the greater good of all. And the number one thing that is for the greater good of all is freedom. Now, in the beginning, when everybody gets freedom, it's going to be a little chaotic because a lot of people don't know how to use freedom. Most people think that we're free because we live in America and we get to go to the grocery store and we get to pick between 26 boxes of cereal. That's not freedom. That is very controlled ability for what it is that we get to experience. So we have the perception of freedom, but you're not totally free. You can't just go be with a person that you love and decide to get married. You're not free to do that without getting permission from somebody. You got to get a license for that. You're not free to just learn how to drive a car and take off and go from one place to another. That's not freedom. You think you have freedom, but you got to go get a license. You got to get permission from somebody for you to be able to drive that car. And you're not free to just go ahead and if you feel passionate about being a hairdresser, you can't just go off and be a hairdresser because you have a talent. You played with your dolls and you did amazing haircuts on your dolls. You're not free to do that. You got to go get permission from somebody to give you a license to say that you can do that. And then you got to get permission from somebody else to figure out where you can put your space. And then you got to get permission from the bank to figure out if you're a worthy financial risk so they can give you a loan. We think we have freedoms, but we really are under very limited freedoms. But the one freedom that every one of us has that most do not understand that we have and we must exercise is the freedom to choose who is our teacher. And I don't mean external teacher like me, internal teacher. Who is the voice that we're listening to? Because every single time we're listening to the ego, we're saying yes to the bondage, to the enslavement that humanity has been operating under. We have we compliantly agreed to be enslaved because we chose to incarnate in a planet where that is what happens in a 3D planet. Humanity, as a collective, the majority decided before we incarnated that this was the time. We have a window, 30-plus-year window that is coming to a close by the year 2030, 2032. That window is closing. The year 2000, do you all remember Y2K? Well, the year 2000 set the clock in motion for things to begin to accelerate. And either you were going to use what was happening as a wake-up call or you were going to continue to sleep. Course in Miracles was given to us in the early 70s so that we would have it ready. So that in 30 years, by the year 2000, lots of people had already had access to this. It had been published in many languages by then. It was available. Conversations about the Course would become normal. Channelings began to happen actually before that, because during the harmonic convergence in 1988, 1987, that time frame, the planets were already aligning, preparing for humanity to move through the galactic area that we have to go through, that is known, and now I can't even remember the name, but we are moving through a place where we are being bombarded with energy. Basically, it's energy that's saying, hey, tap, 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 tap. You people said you wanted to wake up now. We're here to remind you this is your wake-up call. And it doesn't happen instantaneously. We're using time to undo what has been created over time. So we are being gently guided by all of creation for those who want to wake up and move up the spiral to do that. And those who don't want to, they can remain exactly where they're at. Some are going to remain in a third dimensional consciousness, which means you really believe what the ego tells you. That's your teacher, because that is a choice. And those who want something different are choosing to listen to a different teacher, and they get to move up the spiral. It's not good or bad. It's just different choices. If you've already been here, you've done that. If you're tired of the cheating and the lying and the separation and the games of guilt and shame and judgment, if you've done the inner work and you don't have those sticky things inside of you that cause you to get irritated every time you see somebody, you basically come to a place where you observe the world and you go, okay, that's crazy, totally cray-cray, and it's boring, and I don't want any more of it. I'm done with it. When you reach the place where you have this divine discontent that tells you there's really nothing here that is interesting as it is, you are then preparing to do whatever it takes to open up your connection to source so that you can receive the guidance that inspires you into the movement of the co-creation of what's next. That's what the Course in Miracles calls the happy dream. We're still going to experience separation, where it's not going to stop that we're going to have bodies. It's going to stay. But what changes is, instead of listening to the ego and operating in victims and bullies and haves and have-nots and enslavement, we are listening to the voice for the Holy Spirit, who is guiding us towards collaboration and co-creation and basically creating something that we have not experienced yet. So if you haven't experienced it yet, you cannot be arrogant and think you already know it all. You've got to be open to, I don't know what I don't know. And if you hear things that telepathically is a natural way for us to communicate, then you begin to be open to, okay, show me the way, show me how. The mind stops deciding this is all that is true and I'm going to defend it. You stop defending your ethnicity, your culture, your religion, your status, your whatever, and you start becoming new again. This is why the Bible told us 2,000 years ago that you must, if you want to be transformed, you must renew your mind. You cannot think with the same old mind to experience transformation. To think with the same old mind is to experience enslavement, bondage, staying stuck in the same way. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, because whenever I say staying stuck, it's no longer a judgment. I totally appreciate anybody who wants to have that experience. But again, I've been there, done that. I don't need it anymore. There are a lot of things I don't do anymore. There are a lot of restaurants that I've got into and I did not enjoy. I don't go back there. I have that awareness, that maturity that says, I know what feels good to me when I check in with my guidance system. If the food doesn't feel right, if the sound doesn't feel right, if the scenery doesn't feel right, if the same old laws and regulations and political bullshit doesn't feel right, I don't need to do that again. But I have come to the place of I don't blame those people. I don't argue with anybody who likes that. I don't take up signs and write blogs about how bad that restaurant was. I never leave a bad review. Why? Because if they want to do that, let them have it. What I do prefer is to live a life that is grounded in peace, that it is joyful, that people come together. We don't even have to determine, are you trustworthy or not? You can feel the resonance of trust. You can hear what they're saying. Their actions speak for themselves. This is when you begin to understand that in the Course in Miracles, we are given through the 10 characteristics of God, a list of characteristics, 10 of them, that if you embody those characteristics, you are living as one who is operating at that level of consciousness where honesty is a given, where nobody would lie. You don't lie to another because it feels yucky, and you have decided to purify your withinness, and there you don't tolerate the low frequency of lies. You don't do that. So people are attracted that operate at that level of it's a beautiful way of collaboration. And everybody is so confident in who they are. There are no attachments. You don't have to be my best friend. You shouldn't talk to somebody else and only to me. And you don't have to be, my partner for life. And you don't have to be my business partner. And you can never leave me. None of those attachments, none of those codependent relationships, it cannot exist when everybody trusts and is free to be who they are. But that's because you've chosen to listen to the voice that leads us into that realm of experience. So we got to get out of the shallow and superficial world of the ego, where you profess your love to me by the certain things that you must do, and you've got to stop talking to your friends if you love me, and you got to buy me a big ring if you love me, and we got to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for a big wedding if you love me. Mom and Dad, if you really care about me, you're going to give me this big stuff. Everything is about what can I get from somebody else. And the only reason that happens is because internally we feel like we have nothing to give. So we're constantly seeking and getting it. And then if it doesn't work out, it's somebody else's fault. Well, the wedding was a disaster because of the wedding planner. The dad didn't give me enough money, or the marriage didn't work out well. It's my partner. They looked at somebody else. Well, why are they looking at somebody else? What are you doing to make somebody look at somebody else? We've got to take responsibility to really get clear that the seeking and the looking for and the gathering out there is never going to fulfill us. And the reason it can't fulfill us is because what we're looking for is inside. And you gotta stop thinking the way you've been conditioned that it's all superficial, it's all the looks, it's all out there, and come inside And this journey is quite topsy-turvy. It turns everything upside down. You realize how shallow you've been. You realize how you've been chasing things to be and to become and to have and to do, to get accolades out there in a world that the Course calls an illusion. So the journey back is back into your true self. It's a journey to reconnect by beginning to listen to really what matters. At first, we listen and we think, oh, we want this and we want that and we want to travel and we want more this and we want more. Yes, it's going to be material for a while. It's going to be superficial, a little bit deeper, but not as superficial, but a little superficial, because we got to enter into this place. We're moving into it little by little. You got to move in realm by realm by realm. You got to accept everything that is true according to how God created you. And that always is going to go up against what the world taught you. God's going to tell you that you're perfect. The world's going to tell you, I'm not perfect. Look, I got a pimple. Oh, my nose is crooked. My boobs are not big enough. I don't have big enough muscles. So the world's always going to tell you what's wrong with you. Why? Because they want to sell you something to make it right. Why? Because we're superficial. Now, I'm going to work really hard and make more money, or tell my spouse to work harder. Well, I eat bonbons so that I can get the extra money so I can go get the nose job done. And then, oh yeah, then that's a perfect nose. And then 3 months later or 3 years later, oh, this is the latest nose style. Oh, darn, I got to get my nose job again. We're never going to be satisfied in the world of superficial stuff. But you take that journey back. You take that journey home. You come within. As the Course tells us, we already went through 3 paragraphs, so I'm just going to do some highlights. Paragraph 1, knowledge is not the motivation for learning this course. Peace is. This course is not about getting more knowledge. We already have a lot of knowledge. And look where it's gotten us. Peace is the motivation for this course. We have to learn to contrast peace with getting my way. While we're egoically driven, getting my way out here. What can I control out here? Peace is not just to be okay with what's happening, is to recognize that you got to come back inside and not only find out who you are as God created you, but then you got to detach from all the things that you thought you needed outside, that you needed all these things to be happy. You don't need any of that to be happy. And again, the ego loves to argue, but I need the house and I need the car. No, you really don't. You think you do, but you don't need anything to be happy. You don't need anything to be yourself and to be peaceful. So it's a journey of untethering. It's a journey of seeing why we have put so much value on external things than we have on what is internal. So it says that this is the prerequisite for knowledge only because those who are in conflict are not peaceful. And peace is the condition of knowledge because it is the condition of the kingdom. So we don't need to gain more information, but we need to let go of clearly what was taught to us by the world and begin to remember true knowledge, what God thinks of us, how God created us. So we got to create a whole new relationship with God. I absolutely did not have a relationship with God when I began my spiritual journey. That's why I had to start a spiritual journey. I had to leave the God of religion to find the God of my own understanding, to come back inside to really know God, because God's not out there. 2,000 years ago, Jesus told us the kingdom of heaven is within. And for me to know the kingdom, I needed to come inside, because that's where I discovered that I and the Father are one. The Creator and I are one because I was created to extend the kingdom. Everything that animates this physical vessel is what God is. Every single one of us is an aspect of God. And think of God as the sun, and the rays are what bring the light all over the place. Each one of us is a ray. That ray of light that God is what powers me. So we have to get humble enough to recognize that we didn't create ourselves. We were created by something that wants to extend itself, but we contract ourselves when we begin to do and become what the world expects of us. So we've got to understand that all that knowledge that we have, all that information that we have, we need to begin to question it. We need to begin to let it go. We need to begin to make a choice to look at it. Is this really true? Do I really need to spend $100,000 on a wedding to be happy? Well, if you look at the statistics, 50% of them are going to end up in divorce. So no, there is nothing that correlates that the more you spend on a wedding to put on a show, and they're beautiful. Gosh, I love weddings. I mean, I'm happy to have a few more. They were a lot of fun. But the mindset that something external is what's going to make you happy is the trap that enslaves us in constantly doing and becoming and having and acquiring and attempting to climb the corporate ladder and achieve something. That's moving away from where you really want to go, where you must go if you want true happiness, true peace. And then we continue. So paragraph 2 said that the distractions of the ego may seem to interfere with our learning, but the ego has no power to distract you unless you give it the power to do so. This is why I said earlier, we are powerful beings and we're always deciding, but we have been deciding with the ego. And once you decide to go against the ego has no power to tell you otherwise, but you have to become awake. You have to become self-aware. You've got to observe what that egoic voice is. One of the most difficult parts of my coaching has always been convincing people that the voice that they think is their soul is not their soul, it's their ego. But they're so convinced that that is their soul that they won't override their ego. They're determined. Yes, this terrible thing happened to me. I'm a victim. I am not as good because of what happened to me. That's ego talking. Your soul doesn't tell you you're a victim. Your soul tells you you're a powerful creator playing the role of victim. Yes, our soul doesn't argue with the role that we're playing, but it tells us it's just a role. Who would you be if you decided not to go around calling yourself a victim? Who would you be if you didn't label yourself based on what you think is true about you? Ponder that. Who would you be if you remove the labels that you are so comfortable with? I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a wife. You know, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a stay-at-home person, I'm retired. If you didn't have all those labels, what would be left? It would just simply be the essence of who you are. No labels. Then what would be the arguing, the justifying needed for? None whatsoever. Then you can decide, well, what do I want to experience? And when you make the decision for peace, you got to understand that it's not the temporary peace that this world gives you. When you get home after you worked hard, Friday, finally, I get to go home. It's Friday, yay. It's not that kind of peace that then you start dreading on Sunday. I got to go back to work on Monday. That's not the temporary peace that is promised to each and every one of us. The peace that passes all understanding, you can only find when you decide to stop listening to the voice that has you chasing temporariness outside of you and make that journey, the journey back inside of you. So let's go to paragraph number 4. So your past learning must have taught you the wrong thing simply because it has not made you happy. Ding, 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 ding. This is where common sense kicks in. If you look back at your life and you see that it has been this thing, if you settle for up and down, that's okay. But if you decide, you know what, I don't want to keep chasing the ups and the downs. I want something that is more sustainable. I want something that is steady. Then you are going to go on a journey that is going to transform your life. Because you absolutely know that you are done with seeking outside of yourself, chasing outside of yourself. So on this basis alone, its value should be questioned. If you're not happy by the time you're 30 or 40 or 50, If you're not happy by the time you're 60, then you know you can't do it on your own. You know you have to have that level of honesty. There has to be another way. If learning aims to change and that is always its purpose, are you satisfied with the changes your learning has brought you? Dissatisfaction with learning outcomes is a sign of learning failure, since it means that you did not get what you want. How many books have you read to get, a better body? How many books, how many workshops to get, to feel happier about yourself, to feel more confident about yourself, to make more money? How many books have we been sold? Chasing, 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 always going out there to get something. Well, when you get dissatisfied, you know you're on the right track. But most people get dissatisfied, and what do? They talk to somebody else that got a book and they're happy in the moment, so you go get that book, or you go get that workshop, or you go get that thing. And then you feel satisfied for a little while, but then boom, you crash because it's not going to be sustainable. Why? Because in the time of acceleration, everything that is of the 3D world is being amplified for us to see. Do I still want this, or am I one of those who volunteer to ascend? And if you pay attention to what's going on through so many different people who've been providing messages for a very long time, we are in the process of bifurcation. Bifurcation means a splitting, those who want to ascend and those who don't want to. And you know how you can tell the difference? It's very simple. Those who don't want to ascend are right. They're going to defend their position, right about all the things that are wrong in this world. They're going to give you the long list. They can point at all the bad people because they never point at themselves. And you know, those who want to ascend, they don't need to be right. They're curious. They know internally, we know it in every fiber of our being that peace is our natural way of being. So we are seeking out and being drawn to those who that is the conversation that is predominant when we get together. Those superficial conversations when we get together for dinner about how are your kids doing, how's this, how's that, how's the job, how's your latest pay, blah 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 blah. That stuff becomes so uninteresting. Maybe that's why I don't go out to too many meals. Thank you for the love, sweetie. Because I want to know, what does your soul want to do? What are you feeling like is your contribution to make this world a better place? Tell me about the new systems that are being created. I want to know, how are we helping humanity? What is serving humanity? That's an interesting conversation. But to talk about the football game and the score and the latest, beauty pageant or what? I mean, that's all wonderful in the 3D world. I used to enjoy all those things. But again, I'm in this world, but I'm not of it anymore. Those who are ascending are not of it. That's why we're ascending to somewhere else. And it's not a location, it's an internal state of beingness that brings about a whole new world, a whole new beautiful world. Paragraph 5. So the curriculum of the atonement is the coming into oneness with God, coming into at one ment. The curriculum of the atonement is the opposite of the curriculum you have established for yourself, but so is its outcome. So we've got to get willing to look at, there is the way of God, the way of the Holy Spirit, the way of peace, the way of collaboration and integrity. That's a whole different world. Transparency, where you can trust your politicians because they're servant leaders vibrating at a frequency that whatever they are doing in those institutions is for the greater good of all, versus the politicians that you can't trust because you know they're always taking care of themselves first. I grew up in the Dominican Republic. I grew up knowing it was a normal conversation. Corruption, I grew up always knowing that. I mean, I remember my parents talking about, my family talking about and they all were entrepreneurs. And I never grew up with anybody ever worked for somebody else. That's why I always had a hard time working for anybody else. So it was always about, okay, we got to go, we're going to get this permit to do this, whatever. Go in and take some extra cash because you got to pay somebody to get what you need. Well, why? Why do you have to pay somebody to do what they're supposed to do that you elected them or that we as taxpayers pay them to do? Why do they have to get something on the side? Well, because the ego loves to do things on the side. Secret. Shh, don't tell anybody. The ego loves that. Why? Because the ego is a block to the light. It's the darkness. That's what the ego is all about. So we cannot follow the ego's curriculum, the world's curriculum. Don't look for answers in the world. Look for the answers in that which is out of this world. It comes to us sometimes in channeled information. It comes to us directly as guidance. But we're not going to get out of this mess by doing the same things here. We've got to open ourselves to what else is there? And something that everybody has to do at some point in their lives is realize that if we have a belief that God is outside of us, that is a belief we have to work through because God is not outside of us. You got to get clear about what animates you. Yes, when you die, your body will be laying there. What is not there? What is not there is a life force that is like that ray of the light that every one of us is. That is God within each and every one of us. That is our aspect of the Creator that as children we had a connection to, we had a relationship with because we listened to that imagination, but then we get trained out of that. So we got to train ourselves back into listening to that voice within. And that listening to that voice within requires that you stop listening to the voice outside, or at the very least, tone it down, which is why so many people who go deep into their journey, they really go, for a period of time, they got to go within, they got to turn off the outside because they're so, they're turning their awareness inside. They're cultivating a relationship with the withinness that is necessary to be able to experience atonement. Sentence 2 says in paragraph 5, if the outcome of yours has made you unhappy, and if you want a different one, a change in the curriculum is obviously necessary. The first change to be introduced is a change in direction. Expansion is of God. Contraction is of the ego. You got to stop contracting yourself. You've got to stop believing only what you know. You got to get out of your little box. You got to open the windows and begin to poke your head out so you can start moving in a different direction. This world that the ego has built is filled with people who listen to their ego, who run the establishments, who run the systems. That's why the corruption is rampant. That's why the corporations who are in self-gratification, who put profits over people. That's the 3D world. Do you want more of that? This stuff that's coming out, all this Epstein files is not just coming out, it's been there, but we haven't been able to face it. We haven't been able to face it because too many of us are very okay with the abuse of humanity. We're okay with the abuse of children. And the reason I say we're okay with that is, what do you think living your life listening to the ego is? You're abusing your own inner child. You basically lock your own inner child in the recesses of your consciousness and you don't listen to it anymore. You don't listen to that part of you that is the light, the joy, the fun, the imagination, the part of you that is in the now moment because it is always spontaneous. You don't listen to that. So we have gotten very comfortable with listening in the news, listening at social media, wherever you get your information about the thousands of children who are trafficked every year. And what are we doing? Well, most of us say, oh, that's too bad. And then you go about doing whatever you do. I know I've done it. Not blaming anybody. But I'm telling you what the projection is so that you understand. That's been going on forever. We've been sacrificing children forever. You can look at the Old Testament and it is right in there. You sacrifice your newborn child to make God happy. Do you think that's the real God? Or is that the made up God that that religion has fed us to keep us in a place where we don't come to know the real God that is within? Jesus came to tell us that's not my daddy. And Jesus is very clear. I and the Father are one. God is love. How do you know God? You love your neighbor. When we move into the place where we love one another, nowhere does Jesus tell us to sacrifice a newborn child. But yet that's all over the Old Testament. And I'm not a Bible scholar, so I'm not going to try and quote any of it. I just can tell you what I know that I have read. And again, it's very little, but it's enough to tell me that if you look at the Bible, if you look at the old, you look at the new, they're two different stories. So can that be the truth with a capital T? If it's inconsistent, it smells rotten to me. Course in Miracles wants us to move out of the place where we are, our mind is so confused that we come to the place that we want to know God, but we want to go inside for the answers. We can't get them from the outside. So what's happening in Mexico with those young people is that ever since the harmonic convergence, ever since Jesus was here, so it's taken us a long time, 2,000 years, the consciousness of humanity is little by little raising up. We're beginning to value ourselves. As we value ourselves, we don't want somebody else abusing us. So all the Epstein stuff that's coming out is coming out because there's enough light on the planet that is okay facing that in the 3D world we abuse children. We abuse each other. That is the game that I'm done with. I don't want more of that. I want to co-create a game where we help each other, where we are here for each other. But until we are clear that the 3D world is a projection where we are rejecting the truth of who we are because we're chasing the facade, we're chasing the mask, we're chasing what others think, we're not prepared for this level of responsibility for our own inner child, our own inner light, our own inner truth, where we decide, no, this is what's most important. So watch the stuff with Epstein is only going to intensify because there are enough in the world who are not going to accept the sacrifice of children for money or for somebody else's perverted pleasure. Because when you come to know the truth of who you are, the pain of another will never give you pleasure. They do not go together. So you got to decide, what direction are you going? What direction are you going? And when you wake up, it's not like you are all of a sudden going to go out and save all the children. That's not what I'm saying. But what happens is your vibration begins to emanate more light. And as your vibration emanates more light, you're filling up this space. You're filling up this space with truth. You're standing as the truth. You are not buying into these things anymore. You're not supporting things that hurt others. To the best of your ability, you just can't do it. Once I began to understand what happens, in the places that produce the stuff that goes to the dollar store, where all that stuff comes from China or Taiwan or places where they literally use people in the most depraved of situations because it's cheap. Why? To satisfy the Americans who need, 27 of the same thing. Why? Because we got a lot of drawers in our kitchen. We got to fill them up. Got to put something in them. So I got to go to the dollar store, fill it up, fill it. I got to have this. Oh, I got that red one. Oh, I need the blue one. I need the yellow one. Because we're just such unsatisfied beings that we're constantly having to get something to make us feel better about ourselves. As we stop doing that, we become more grounded. We become more clear about who we are. We harness that energy. It's not siphoned out of us anymore. We're no longer serving as luge for those who need our enslavement, our money, our time, our attention. It comes inside. You disconnect from the news. You disconnect from stuff that is constantly, an overload of distraction. You come inside. You come inside. You become the parent that treats your child in a very different way, more conscious than you did before. And then what happens? All of a sudden, you've got conscious parents, conscious grandparents. And then what happens? You have Gen Z who grows up with a sense of courage that says, I don't care if you're the president of the country, it's not okay to kill people. And they tell you I'd rather die fighting for the peace of everybody because it's our birthright, it's what we deserve, than to stay cowardly like maybe their grandparents or their parents and not say anything and not risk getting beheaded in front of their family. But these kids, they know that they're eternal. They know they're not bodies. They don't care. They don't care if you take me, but I'm standing for peace. That's a hill worth dying for because, like Jesus said, death is not the end. We are not bodies, but that requires a level of courage that you know you're no longer bound to the things of this world. You are determined to have the freedom that comes from knowing the truth of who you are. And when you connect with the truth of who you are, there's only one direction to go in, and that's expansion, not just for you, but for the greater good of all. You cannot be selfish anymore when you come to know the truth of who you are. Now you do things for the greater good. So then it says, so we've got to introduce a change in direction. Sentence 4 says, a meaningful curriculum cannot be inconsistent. If it is planned by two teachers, each believing in diametrically opposed ideas, it cannot be integrated. You cannot listen to the ego and think in victimization and think in valuing material things, and at the same time, listen to the Holy Spirit, move inside, come to the place where you begin to value what is eternal. Because when you begin to value life, you do not fear death. When you begin to value peace, you do not worry about temporary pleasure and pain. That's not part of your reality. When you begin to listen to God, just like Jesus, and not that everybody has to be crucified to give us an example of what a connection with God is all about, you begin to realize that everything that happens to the body is strictly because it's in 3D. If you want to move to a realm where we're no longer using the body to hurt one another, you have to move into 5D. You have to train your consciousness to think beyond that. Stop giving your power away. The government has no power over you. As a matter of fact, the government is supposed to work for you. Do you realize that the American Constitution is unique in that it states in our founding documents that if we're not happy of the direction the government is going, we can abolish the government? But how many people stand up to abolish the government? Very few. And what happens is they get labeled conspiracy theorists or Black Panthers or I've been reading things about the people that I grew up believing were some kind of anarchists or well, that's a good thing, some kind of terrible people, and they were mocked and most of them were shot. Do you know that they were actually standing for what our Constitution is all about? Do you realize, because I know I've been learning about this, that the average American person doesn't really understand that we're not a democracy? Our founding fathers created a constitutional republic. It is very different than a democracy. And yet, oh, we want to protect the democracy. No, we don't. But I didn't know that because I was listening to one teacher, an internal teacher, an external teacher, that were just getting my mind to get agitated and activated and aligned with nonsense. And I defended that for a long time. And I've had to do forgiveness work on myself. I've had to over the years, have had to ask for forgiveness. People that I argued because I thought they were wrong. I needed to be right. But you begin to discover the truth. You begin to go deeper. Then you begin to realize that the truth and the lies are diametrically opposed. If you want to ascend, everything has to be for the greater good of all. And when you begin to learn information, you begin to really study those founding documents, you will see that most of the language that is used predominantly by the left is very misleading because it is not true. And I was defending things that were not true for the longest time when I was a good liberal. That's a whole different conversation. But spiritual people, people who feel like they are caring and compassionate and who go into the liberal side are being used because of the kindness and the compassion that is really innately natural. But the need to be right about something that is wrong makes them dangerous. No different as people on the right who think that they're right about their way of doing things. There is a beautiful middle way that we are not able to really connect in. We can't connect in there because the politics keep us divided. This whole thing with Epstein, until children are viewed not as Republican or Democrat, and we join for the liberation of the children so that no child is ever used by anybody, until we stop seeing them as Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative, we stay divided by design. The world of the ego is a world where it is designed to maintain us in polarity. But when we begin to accept duality, that we have bodies, that we have, we feel separate, but we don't have to kill each other because we're separate. We don't have to hate each other. Who said that we have to do that? That's the teachings of the ego. Well, there's a teacher who wants to teach us something else, that we can care and respect and trust one another. But that's a whole different direction. That direction requires that we move out of the sides. We move out of taking sides and move into the middle. The middle way, spoken about in so many different ways, spoken in Eastern religion, spoken by Jesus. I am the way. Gave us A Course in Miracles. If we follow this way, we too can change our mind, align our mind with truth. And it goes on to say in sentence 6, paragraph 5, if it is carried out by these two teachers simultaneously, if you're learning, trying to listen to both, each one merely interferes with the other. This leads to fluctuation, but not to change. Have you noticed how most of us lived our lives listening to the ego, doing the ego stuff during, most of the week, and then Sundays for 2 hours we'd go to church, and then we felt so good and we sang the songs and we were part of a community, and then we went back into the same egoic bullshit for the rest of the time. But then we came back on Sunday and on holidays, maybe on Wednesday night. Why? Because we were fluctuating between the two. We were never changed fully until we chose the one. The volatile have no direction. Look at any news station. The volatile, they're sparking off, they're angry, they're mobs, they're blah 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 blah, have no direction. It's this. We're gonna protest this today. We're gonna protest that tomorrow. All that energy, to talk about what we don't like. Let's meet in the middle. What do we want? Because see, if they let us all get together and sit in one room and took the labels off, don't put groups in with the blue shirts and the red shirts. Let everybody come in. Don't tell anybody what anybody is. And let us share what is it that we want. We all want the same thing. Peace is always going to be in the top 5. Freedom, ability to do our thing without somebody, over us, telling us we can do, this is wrong, this is right. To experience what God said is our inalienable right. To live our lives, to experience freedom, liberty, and to pursue happiness. When you're busy doing what is best for the greater good, you're not taking, you're not selfish, you're not corrupt, you're not lining your pockets at the expense of others. So, the volatile have no direction. They cannot choose one because they cannot relinquish the other, even if it does not exist. And most of what we are believing does not even exist. Their conflicted curriculum teaches them that all directions exist and gives them no rationale for choice. It's amazing when you sit with the course. It's so powerful and so clear. We have not been given a rationale for a choice. We have not been taught about what is possible when we really listen to the part within us that connects us to one another, which we have to do, by the way, if we want to have practice telepathic communication. But we got to go into that place that is still and quiet inside. Paragraph 6, the total senselessness of such a curriculum must be fully recognized before a real change in direction becomes possible. Do you know why? In the daily news, they don't tell us about why, no, the different parties, the right and the left, have done such a disservice to humanity, such a disservice to humanity. When newscasters stopped just giving us the facts and letting us make our own opinions, and they began to feed us their opinions, they put us in two camps. And those two camps, their job is to say, my way is right, that one is wrong. Well, think about it logically. How can 50% be right and 50% be wrong? That doesn't make sense. There must be a right way and there must be things that are wrong. But if we can't talk about them and recognize what is wrong, I know it's simple. Hurting others, that's wrong. That should be across the board. That shouldn't be a political thing. What is right? Truth, transparency, integrity. That shouldn't just be one side or the other. But we don't have those conversations. Why? Because the ego runs through individuals who listen to their ego the game of separation. And we have to become mature enough to move beyond it. We have to be mature enough to decide, I don't need to be right. I want to be happy. The course is really simple. Do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And at the beginning of newer people always say, but I want to be both. Yes, yes, I did too. But this is talking about a rightness that comes from making another wrong. You don't want that. You can't be happy if you have to make another wrong because you're going to spend the rest of your time proving them wrong. That takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort to prove that person wrong, wasting a lot of time. But that's okay in the 3D realm. You do all that in the 3D realm. What I'm hoping I'm doing is painting a picture that there is a fifth dimension. There is a realm where things are so much easier and smoother, but you got to move yourself to that level of consciousness. You got to move out of the lower chakras. I'm only a human belief system and move into the more mature, higher ways of thinking. Connect with your third eye. Open up to seeing the way God sees the world. Connect to that seventh chakra where you are receiving guidance, where you become a toroidal field, where you're receiving and giving, and everything becomes a seamless dance between you and creation, co-creating infinitely. Because that is what God wants us to do, is to become infinite co-creators. But we can't be co-creating if we don't understand that we've been listening to a curriculum that made us consumers, that made us codependent, that made us contracted, and that became normal. Oh, you got a problem? Well, take a pill. You got a problem? Take a shot. You're a pain in the ass. Well, and you're old, but we're going to put you in a special home. Those are the things of the ego. You've got to understand that you got to change directions. You cannot learn simultaneously from two teachers who are in total disagreement about everything. Peace, war are totally different. If you want peace, stop looking at the freaking war. Stop talking about the war. Stop pointing at who's done a war. Spend your time. What does peace look like? How do we create this? Don't worry about those, because the frequencies of those who really want peace, they're becoming more and more visible in the world. And do you want to really see who is operating in this world with the highest levels of integrity for co-creating a happy dream? Those are the ones who are most bashed in the news. That will tell you because the ego doesn't like anybody who's a pipe piper and is going to take people off into a whole nother way of being and not keep funding the same old horrible, dark corruption. You want to see who's really doing good for the world? Look up the 10 most smeared people. That's going to tell you who they are. Their joint curriculum presents an impossible learning task. They are teaching you entirely different things in entirely different ways, which might be possible, except that both are teaching you about yourself. You pay attention to the world of the news and politics, total corruption, the world of profits and bigger businesses and more profits for the CEOs. How much money does any one person need to live a happy, healthy life? Not really that much. But why do we need so much more at the expense of others? Why do CEOs have to do so much more at the expense of not only the people that work for them, let's say the janitors at the lowest levels, but their customers? The whole insurance business is going to be falling under its own weight. Why do we need middlemen? I grew up again in the Dominican. My uncle was our family doctor. We went and we saw him. We didn't need insurance to see him. If there was something he couldn't do, he'd send us to somebody else. It was very simple. Prices were affordable. He lived a simple life. We lived a simple life. Everybody lived comfortable. There was plenty to go around. Nobody worried. But today, families have to make a decision between health and their child and money. Why we can't afford the insulin? We can't afford the medical treatment? Or we're going to be homeless? It should break the heart of one who has become sensitive that anybody is doing without. Because that's when we begin to connect to the place within us that we're all one, we're all the same. But we have justified, well, I worked hard and I made my way and they didn't, and they didn't work so hard. They didn't get the degrees. They didn't do whatever. So it's cause and effect. And it is cause and effect. But where is the compassion? Where is the empathy? Where is the kindness? Those things get activated when we begin to realize that we're all one. And when we tolerate the hurting of one, we're tolerating the hurting of all. As we begin to shift inside, we will no longer participate in supporting anything that is not clearly, very clearly stated in service to the greater good of all. That day is coming. We're making it happen. All those people who are fighting the establishment, who are fighting big pharma, who are fighting government, who are fighting the lies and the corruptions, they are what they're fighting for is they're gaining their voice. They're at that level of anger. We need some angry people right now because it's the angry people who are going to do the work that most of us who've reached a certain level of kindness and compassion, we're not going to go and beat anybody because we recognize that it's a choice. To play in the 3D game is a choice. Those who want to ascend to a whole different game are going to get angry enough to push through the barriers of all of the lies, all of the BS that we have been sold. Sentence 5 says, last sentence here, your reality is unaffected by two different teachers. But if you listen to both, your mind will be split about what your reality is. Our mind has been split about what reality is. We have thought, we have accepted that reality is some people are lucky, some are not. We have accepted that reality is, well, some people go hungry, some don't. Some people get handouts, some don't. Some people get millions, some don't. Some people get raped, some don't. We have accepted that's just how it is. And it is because we're creators of our reality, but it doesn't have to be what we accept. As a matter of fact, it's not possible. Jesus showed us very clearly. You treat all the same. The prostitute, the tax collector, the worst of the worst in those times. They should be accorded the same love and reverence as the rabbis. Why? Because we're all one. We're all made of the same essence. And until we learn to love ourselves, we do not have really, truly the kind of love that is required to love all other beings. But it's to love ourselves with a very humble, clear knowing that we're a magnificent child of God, and so is everybody else. And we are being moved in this process of acceleration for more to wake up and activate that compassion, that humbleness, that kindness. And when you stop thinking about just yourself, you begin to hear, to feel how to serve the greater good. And sometimes serving the greater good is by praying for them, clearly praying for them. Maybe it's by sending money. Maybe it's by participating in utilizing their services versus the other ones. I don't go to the systems of the old world. That's not where I prefer to go. Now, there are some systems that I still have to use, like certain grocery stores, and within them, I pick the things that I feel are most in alignment, but I try to support the locals as much as possible. People who tend to the farms, to the food, to the whatever they're doing with love, with care. That is where we're moving to. The world of profits over people, that's coming to a close relatively soon. Relatively soon could be a couple of decades, but it's coming to a close. Humanity is not going to put up with anybody who does something that hurts another when you realize that we're all one. Do you know that that's what the ego does not want us to recognize? They put God outside of us so that we wouldn't find the truth of who we are. Because if we found the truth of who we are and God was inside of us, we're smart people. Every one of us is smart. We would have put two and two together. If I'm God, then so is everybody else. If I'm made of love, so is everybody else. So they put God outside so we wouldn't know each other, so we don't know who we are, and made us so afraid by selling us so many lies that it has made so many people so weak that don't stand up. Thank goodness for those kids in Mexico and around the world, actually. Mexico is just one of the places where young people are saying, no more. I don't care if you're the president. You're no better than me. And that's as it should be. Nobody is better than anybody else. Everybody's playing different roles, but nobody is better than anybody else. Thank you all so much for being part of this transmission. Oh, I needed to hear this. This is good. This is good stuff as I'm looking at this crazy world that we're in. Next week, even though we've done this a long time ago, it's time to do it again. Next week, we're going to look at section 2, which is called the difference between imprisonment and freedom. We think we have been free, but we're not free. We're not free. If we're afraid, we're not free. And what does freedom really look like? Well, that's what the Course in Miracles is going to teach us. It teach those who want to find out. So we'll see you next week. And thank you for your prayers and your love and oh my gosh, all the beautiful things that I heard from you when I was going through my topsy-turvy change, but it was as within, so without. The world is topsy-turvy. I'm just grounding myself in the light, and I do it with the Course in Miracles. And if I can do it, so can you, because there's nothing special about me. If I can do it, anybody can. This is beautiful information. It's truth, and it just frees us. All right. Anybody want to share anything? Otherwise, we'll just say goodbye.
I just want to say thank you, Laina. Um, I don't know how even tell it. Like I was drinking, I drank from a clear, clean source. Wonderful. Like every word. I enjoyed it so much. Coming from you, it was sorry, somebody calling. Yeah, coming from you, it was way more clear than just reading a book. Sorry, it still is.
Well, I love you. Great to see you here, sweetie.
Just, amazing.
Thank you. If this message means something, pass it around. And if you want to hear more, join us in the Awareness Academy. That's where we do all of our classes. So, all right, everybody. See you guys next time.
Bye. See you tomorrow morning.
Bye. Good. Bye-bye.
Bye.